Hello and welcome back, stargazers, to the Outlaw Astrology Podcast. I am your intrepid star guide, 8 p.m, and this is episode 144. We're talking about the court cards. Previously, we talked about the minor arcana, and we journeyed through the numbered cards and the decans. And today we're going to talk about court cards. That is the queens, kings, knights, and pages. They are representations of elemental combinations in the zodiacal quadrants. So, housekeeping. This will be the Golden Dawn correspondence series before moving into more suit deep dives. So this will be it. Also, there is a free and paid version of the newsletter where if you prefer to read, you can read this podcast content, and if you need study it with a bit more depth, then that's available on the newsletter, which the link will be in the show notes. And the podcast is just me currently, and we could definitely use with the assistance. So wherever you happen to be listening, do rate us and find 5 stars so other people can find us just as easily. And on social media, we are on YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. The Outlaw Astrology or Outlaw Astrology will be the handle you'll be looking for. Those links are also in the show notes. And now, onward. Okay, so court cards are usually challenging for most tarologists and tarot readers because they're complex. Sometimes they're read as personality, sometimes they exemplify traits. Depending on the system, the correspondences will alter. We are using Golden Dawn, and the reason why is because a lot of people use it, not because I personally agree with it or believe that it's the best system or that you should do it as well, merely because it is a starting point for understanding how they set up the system with the intention of setting up one's own. Okay, so we're looking at court cards as elemental personalities, and so court cards are combinations of 2 elements, the suits element and the court's rank element. So what we're going to do is break it down. Pages, knights, queens, and kings. So pages, we're going to start with pages are earth in the Golden Dawn system. Knights are fire or air, depending on the system. And queens are water, kings are fire. So in the Golden Dawn system, the knights are air energy. There will be variations. So some systems, as I've said, will give knights air. Princes and knights function differently, so it depends. You have to clarify what you're using. So, for example, in the Thoth system, otherwise known as Thoth, Thoth, it's pronounced Thoth or Thoth, depending on the system, the lineage. And so, whether or not what a knight is or a prince is going to be very differently. So, we're talking Rider-Waite-Smith. We're not looking into the Thoth system at all, even though the Thoth system is part of the Golden Dawn lineage, as its creators, Crowley and later Freda Harris, were Golden Dawn members. It's just that we're going to stick to the Rider-Waite-Smith because it is the most commonly used system, and I feel the easiest to translate, and it's a good starting point. Okay, so here's some examples. So Knight of Cups would be, if we're doing fire, would be fire of water, passionate, emotional action. Queen of Swords would be water of air, for example, meaning intuitive, intellectual depth. Now, if you've noticed that fire, now for me, I'm going to tell you my personal belief when it comes to the Golden Dawn system. I tend to attribute fire to the knights and air to the kings, because fire is all action. And when you're younger, and your brain is still developing, by the way, from the ages of 9 to 32 is called the adolescent phase in brain development. So, all the way to the age of 32, that's adolescence, from the age of 9. And so that's when you're proving yourself, looking for approval, you don't know yourself well enough to be able to make wiser choices. We're a bit more reactive during that time. And so that's why I think nights represent more of that youthful energy. They're not children as pages are. They are young people or becoming young people, becoming young adults. And so that'd be teen to young adult years. And so we get that fiery energy that wants to move, wants to react, wants to take action, etc. Okay, so when we're talking about elemental blends, we're looking to create a distinct personality archetype, and they're basically a way to move through the world. I find it helpful, whilst this is useful, I find it helpful to attribute a archetype, a character that I like. Say, for example, Wednesday Addams. I'd ask myself, what energy would I see her as? Well, she's very active. She's not innocent. She's not, I would not call her sweet. She's in action. She wants to know the truth, and she's willing to run that truth down, put herself in danger, and sometimes her friends and family as well in danger in the search for truth, to excavate it. She cannot tolerate hypocrisy, lies, or any of that. So what page would best speak to that? Because it's very fiery energy. She's not warm, okay? So that puts out water. She can get angry, but she's cool with her anger. So I'd call her a Knight of Swords energy, which is very, very fiery. So that's fire of air. And that is, when we're talking air, we're talking about the mental aspect of things. We're talking about fire of air. Okay? So we're talking about intellectual, the intellectual part. But it's not as intuitive. It's a bit more restless. So we've got a energetic search for intellectual truth. We're not at depth yet, so that's how I might read that. So we're talking about personality archetypes. It's helpful to find a fictional character in a favorite film, a favorite TV program, or a book that best represents that energy because of something called a generation theory. It's best if we generate information for ourselves whilst we're learning. So by doing this, you're generating your own information, and it allows you to internalize the information that more easily and recall it just as easily. So Knight of Swords, that would be Wednesday. She's a knight. She's not a queen. She doesn't have depth yet. She's not a king. She's not cool-headed enough. She is a risk-taker, like most of the knights happen to be. And that means that she doesn't always consider that she is mortal, that she is young, that she doesn't have all the answers. And in her search to get those answers is willing to, bop noses out of joint and upset people. And I'm not saying right, wrong, that's not the point. The point is that she's very fire of air. Intellectual curiosity, inquisitiveness, and a fiery drive to satiate that curiosity. And inquisitive and curiosity are not exactly the same thing. Curiosity is asking, why is the sky blue? Inquisitiveness is running down the information to back up why the sky is blue, for example. And that would exemplify Wednesday quite nicely. Now, court cards are also have connection to the zodiacal wheel. So, in the Golden Dawn system, each court card corresponds to a quadrant of the zodiac, and it spans across parts of these of consecutive signs, for example. So as we walk, let's try an example. So Knight of Wands rules about 20 degrees Scorpio to 20 degrees of Sagittarius. Queen of Pentacles rules 20 degrees of Sagittarius to 20 degrees of Capricorn. Now, I'm not going to focus on that too much because that part of the system is not used. I just note it here because it's interesting. So here's how I would break it down more simply as it was taught to me in the lineage that I understand and know that is also Golden Dawn. So when you break it down, the Knight of Wands is Queen, King, Page, Knight, as it's taught in that system. The king would be cardinal, the queen is fixed, and the knight is mutable. The page kind of floats around a bit, rather like the fool might, in that it exemplifies all of the energy of the sign. It's youthfulness, it is potential, it hasn't manifested anything. It's sweet, or it's fiery, or it's restless, what have you. So that's how I would do it. So the Knight of Wands would be Sagittarius. The Queen of Pentacles would be Taurus energy. And the King of Cups would be Cancerian energy, because that's the cardinal water sign. And let me make another example. The Queen of Wands King of Wands, would be Aries energy. Okay, so we're going to keep it simple. That's the way I prefer it. But yes, that system, I note it. It is something interesting to note, not necessarily something that needs to be used, because I like simplicity, I like efficiency, I like efficacy. I don't like overcomplicated things when something simple will do just nicely and creates the clarity that I seek. So let's clarify. It's like overlapping zones where cards share a zodiacal territory. That's typically how it operates, and it's reflecting a more fluid nature of personality and timing, because personalities, contrary to the belief of most lay people, are not fixed. They are fluid concepts. Some parts of the personality tend to be more fixed than others, but most of the time we actually are not the same person we think we are. We merely have continuity of memory, which creates the illusion, or makes us believe that continuity of memory is proof that we haven't changed, that we're the same person, and we're just not. And confirmation bias, as we look back, we confirm that whatever activities back there contribute to the present, and they do shape and form, but how is still very much up for debate. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about fluidity of personality, that even tarot cards cannot clarify who we are, cannot give us traits. It just points a finger and says that way. Okay, so what we're going to do is talk about timing and reading. So court cards can indicate people born in these periods or events occurring during Saturn transits. So what that basically means is, if we're pulling a Knight of Wands, we're looking at Sagittarius territory, which would start thereabouts depends on the year, about the 21st, the 22nd, thereabouts. I've even seen it as late as the 23rd, depending on the year, but about thereabouts 21st, 22nd, somewhere like that. Okay? And going all the way to about the 20th through the 22nd, thereabouts in December. Starting in November to December, that's Sagittarius territory. And the Knight of Wands can be a card to meditate on, meaning you can put it on your altar if you have one, or close by where you can see it, because it reminds you of Sagittarius energy. Sagittarius energy tends to be broad-minded. It is optimistic. It is looking for the search, looking for truth. It's the search for truth, and in particular, their perspective, their perception of truth, because truth is fluid. It is slippery. It is not a fixed, absolute certainty. It changes based on context, timing, and whoever happens to be beholding it. So the Knight of Wands for Sagittarius season is an ideal looky-loo. Now, if we're having a transit, for example, and the moon happens to be a full moon in Sagittarius, and by the way, in 2026, there will be no full moon in Sagittarius at all. So if you'd like, pulling out the Knight of Wands card to reconnect you with that energy would be ideal, because, as I said, the full moon in Sag usually happens thereabouts in June, thereabouts during Gemini season, but it will not be happening in 2026. So it's an ideal time to pull out the Knight of Wands card and familiarize yourself with that questioning and questing energy of Sagittarius. So that's how you could use the cards. If you know the sign that you're in, say the sun sign is in Aries, you're going to be looking at the King of Wands. Or if we're doing, if you want to look at the minors, you'd be looking at the first 3, 2, 3, and 4. That's Aries energy. And if Mars is, say, in a transit, so that's a way of connecting. The cards allow you to follow transits, for example. Or if you do secondary progressions or annual projections, you could use a court card, you can use any of the tarot cards to allow you to meditate, to reflect on that season so that you can start setting intentions. And in Sagittarius season, for example, you'd be questioning, what is the truth? How do I define the truth? How do I know when I experience the truth? What cultural limitations are on truth? Who decides what the truth is? And who doesn't get a chance to make that determination? So those are very Sagittarian questions. Jupiter is the ruling planet there, and the 9th house is orthodoxy, meaning systems. It's the time to question what you believe as well. Okay, so let's move on. We are going to go more into transits and cards with transits in a future episode. This is merely an overview to give you a taste of what's coming and to give you an understanding of how you might want to start using the cards. So, reading court cards, people, energies, and timing. So, there are 3 primary ways to do this. As actual people, which would be a signifier, say you've got a friend that says, I'm in trouble, I'm having relationship issues, you would then identify, say, for example, they're a sun in Taurus. You might pull the court card, the Queen of Pentacles, as a signifier to help your friend, hypothetical friend, better understand what's going on. And the energies and approaches to adopt and timing indicators. So, let's say sun in Taurus, and the relationship is all very watery. They believe, the hypothetical here is that twin souls belief. They're twin flames, but everything is very complicated and has gotten a bit more unsure, confused, and vague. And that is what's confusing. Well, the Queen of Pentacles is very grounded. She's very embodied. She knows how she feels. She knows where she feels in her body. And so we're talking about a more embodied experience, a more felt sense experience. So the question would then be, how do you feel? Where do you feel it? Because naming it makes it clear. Because the Queen of Pentacles would know. She would name it. She knows how she feels. She knows how she feels in her body. It's very Taurus energy. It's slow. It's deliberate energy. It is not, it's about being aware also of one's comfort zone, because Taurus is very well known for the comfort zone. And the fact is, it's not about having a comfort zone or not an ability to get outside of one's comfort zone, although you could definitely read it. It is, what do I define as my comfort zone? Where am I comfortable and where am I uncomfortable? And the traits that one might seek would be a grounded, a more practical approach. If everything, for example, as per our example, our hypothetical example, which is all very vague, it'd be naming things. It'd be pinning things down. It'd be very practical. Okay, what do I feel about this person? What do I want to get out of this relationship? How do I feel in this relationship? Is it satisfying me? Is it emotionally satisfying? Is it physically satisfying? Does it provide pleasure? Because Venus is the sign, the planet that rules the sign of the Earth, fixed Earth sign of Taurus, which the Queen of Pentacles represents. And so, does it provide delight, joy, pleasure, which are all Venusian themes aligned with Taurus? And so that might be a starting point to getting more understanding for our hypothetical querent, the friend who's in a vague, confused relationship. And so you might see the Queen as earth of water. So grounded, embodied, intuitive sense. Okay? So that's how we might read that. Now, as a timing indicator, depends on when. Let's say that not only is the sun, this is a person with, we got the sun here, someone in Taurus sun, but the moon happens to be transiting in Taurus. Okay. If it is a new moon in Taurus, let's just say it is for the sake of ease and simplicity, okay, one can set up an altar, one can start small steps, at least on your part, on the querent's part, meaning the hypothetical querent's part, to better understand what they're looking for. Because if they know who they are and they know what they're looking for, they now know what they can do. What is necessary here is clarity, grounded, practical, slow and deliberate clarity. And since this is Taurus energy, it's going to be slow. It's going to be deliberate. Do not expect immediate, fast, snap, snap, snap answers. And that is a way of moving in that direction, small step by small step. Okay? And so that would be also a timing indicator. During lunar living by the moon is, okay, moon is in Taurus. This is a good time to get in touch with my feelings about this relationship, because Venus is about connections, our social connections. Is this feeding me? Is it satiating? Do I find joy? Do I find delight? What are my feelings? How do I feel in my body when I'm in this person's presence? When I talk to them, when I think of them? It helps bring a grounded, embodied sense of clarity. So, another example is if the King of Cups appears, it may represent a mature water sign person, for example. And it's an invitation to embody emotional mastery, as it were. Or it could be events during late Pisces, early Aries season. That's one way of seeing it. Here's the way I see it. For this particular example, King of Cups, we're looking at Cancerian energy. So, this could also speak to Cancer season. And a new moon in Cancer would be an ideal time to look at what is home. How do I feel? Where do I belong? Where do I feel I belong most? Now, there's a difference between fitting in and belonging. Belonging is all of your foibles, your quirks, all the entirety of being a messy person in the early 21st century are welcome. There is a receptivity and openness to allowing what we love about people and what we less love about them to coexist without feeling the need to lean heavily in the positive direction. Let's lean into what I love about my partner. Or, okay, I love this person and I love these traits not so much, and both sets of traits are the totality of this person you care about. So, for example, and I would say also emotional mastery, meaning learning emotional intelligence, learning to read a room, learning to read people's physicality, as it were, to understand what's going on with them so you can be of better support. The reason why you might do this is because it creates a stronger emotional bond and stronger social connections, which are ideal for mental and emotional well-being and health, for example. Now, to go back to the previous example, the Queen of Pentacles, we would be looking at Taurus season. So it would be, if that card is pulled, it could also speak to events during Taurus season, for example. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about, lastly, is to determine which interpretation fits based on the question and type and the surrounding cards. So basically, you're going to need surrounding cards. You do not read a card in isolation. The court cards are no different. So let's say we've got the King of Cups, and surrounding the King of Cups is a whole lot of air. We've got most of the cards are in the early part of the sword suit. So, for example, we've got, imagine a diamond with a card above, a card to the left, a card to the right, a card to the bottom. In dead center, we've got our Queen of Pentacles. And Queen of Pentacles is surrounded by, up top, we've got what we think about the situation. Below, what we feel about the situation, the card below the Queen of Pentacles. To the left, what past indicated, past catalyst events that precipitated, that might have promoted this type of energy that leads us to the Queen of Cups, which is the present. And the card to the right would be, so we got two up top, 3 at the bottom, 4 on the left and 5 on the right. And this is all swords. So, surrounded by all of this energy, all air, and we've got water of earth. So we got an intuitive and embodied. Up above, we got the 2 of Wands. There's conflict, mental conflict. There is confusion. And let's say we're talking about that same person, hypothetically, who is trying to make sense of a confusing relationship where the boundaries and everything is vague. They don't seem to know, no one seems to know where they're going, what they're doing. There's conflict, because the 2 of Swords is a card of conflict. And then if we look at the card below, what do we feel? 3 of Swords is disappointment. You know, this isn't nailed down as we'd hoped. We're not moving in a linear trajectory which feels certain and comfortable. There's too much unknowns and too much uncertainty. Then we look at the card to the left, which would be past influences. Now we've got the 4 of Swords, and that is step back kind of energy. It's taking a break. So maybe the 2 people in this hypothetical decided to step back from each other, take a break. Let's separate and figure this out until we've got more clarity. But then into the future, we have the 5 of Swords. And the 5 of Swords in the advice, or what would be called outcomes. I don't do outcomes. I would say further information is how I might put it, or support or advice would be the 5 of Swords. 5 of Swords is a card that is win. It's like somebody wins, but somebody loses kind of card. And it's understanding that if what we're looking for in the center, the present, is Queen of Wands, very Taurus, very asking yourself if this creates delight or joy or etc. And the advice is, keep in mind, this could very much turn into a win-lose situation. We're not going to be able to get all that we want, and the other person is not going to get all that they want. And so the whole point is, when I see that, I interpret that as, it's best to be realistic. Okay? You've taken a break, future advice, it's best to be realistic. And to be aware of the fact that it is possible that this confusion, this vagueness, is being underpinned by a sense of keeping things vague and keeping things confusing as a way of avoiding clarity. Because if you avoid clarity, the confusion, you don't have to make a choice. And so someone's going to win in this situation and someone's going to lose. And this card also suggests that something's not on the up and up. Okay, so that's how I might interpret that. And so what we're doing here is asking if that interpretation fits based on the question type. Here's the thing, question matters. And if you ask yes or no questions, that's fine too. But the question, depending on how well it's asked or phrased, and the surrounding cards, will have a lot to do with the interpretation. Now, this is not about interpretation. It's just merely me giving an example to illustrate so that there is greater understanding. So, I encourage experimentation. Track when court cards appear in your readings and note what unfolds. Because you want to build your own empirical understanding of the cards, your own empirical comprehension. You do not want to take anyone's word for it and including mine. You need your own lived experience, and to strengthen your skill set, you're going to need to experiment, and that includes making mistakes. And mistakes are welcome. We want those because now we're learning. Okay? Alrighty, so what we're going to do right now is a key takeaway. And here it is. So, court cards are elemental alchemies. They are zodiacal bridges. They represent complex personalities. They are energetic approaches and specific timing windows within the astrological year. They are merely pointing fingers. They are not destinies. They are not fated. None of that is the truth. We make the choices. We make the decisions. Okay? And here's something, an invitation. So draw a court card to explore both its elemental blend and its zodiacal quadrants. So you want maybe journal about what this energy, how it shows up in your life and the lives of people you know, is what I consider to be helpful. Okay, so we're going to do some deep dives next episode, starting with the suit of wands, which is fire, and we're going to explore the full narrative arc from ace through the 10 plus any court cards should I desire to do that. Thank you very much for completing this foundational series and listening in, and feel free to share any insights or questions. I'd say note any insights or questions as you go along with your experimentation, and I thank you very much for supporting the podcast. And this is being recorded at the last day of 2025, so Happy New Year, and see you in the new year. Peace and astro magic star people.